All right, guys, we got a pretty interesting show. So when we started Major Talk, we were focusing on what we called the three sins of social life. Some people would say sex instead of science, but I would say science, religion, and politics. Because science is sex. Yeah, that's my opinion. Anyways, continue on. We're going to focus on a scientific phenomenon today. Well, not phenomenon, a scientific discovery with CRISPR, the whole thing that is gene editing. Now, of course, I'm not a scientist, and I will sound a little stupid here, but I'm a science lover. I love this article, and it does raise a bunch of ethical questions, but it also raises a bunch of good questions. Mm-hmm. So let's look into it. Sorry, guys, here it is. Engineering HIV-resistant babies may have accidentally changed their brains. Mark.
All right. So, to be honest, when I read this title, I kind of thought that they said it in a negative way.
I do have to add that it sounded really negative.
Their brain may have accidentally changed their brains in a bad way, like, they got cognitive deficiencies or something, But actually, if you read through this, through the rest of the article, it actually says so the gene that they were trying to change was a gene called CCR5. Now,
CCR5.
So CCR5 is the gene that basically... we have white blood cells, right? And that gene basically is responsible for letting that disease come inside the cell, the white blood cell, and basically infecting it, which is what the disease does, right?
Correct.
Which is what it's all about. But so I think it was in a Chinese couple.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, that they tried this on, is that they tried it on humans for once. So they tried to shut off the CCR5 gene to see if that would make them resistant to
Let me just
HIV.
stop you right there. So what they did was, let me just clarify it for everybody. The couple, they were having a baby. They took the egg and this. I don't know if they took the egg and the sperm or how that worked, but the fetus itself, they were messing with the gene where, as Mark is going to explain more, they shut off the gene CCR5. And now continue.
So they made it non-functional, basically. So to see whether or not that would make them resistant to the disease, and it did. But as the article says here, new research out this week shows that turning off the CCR5 might have far more effects on human functioning than just resistance to HIV. Namely, it could change brain functioning and potentially improve intelligence.
So before we get into the detail of that amazing work that was done by the big bad Chinese, as our American leadership tells us, my really big issue, even though it's not really the substance base, it's the fact that this article was really biased in the sense, like when you're reading it, you get that feeling so deep that it was really negative. This is something really bad, something truly bad happened. And a lot of it, in my opinion, has to do with the fact that, first of all, it was done by a Chinese scientists group. And second of all, the world wasn't quite A-okay with it. Which, I mean, you get it. It brings up the moral questions of you're screwing with the brain function, the natural brain functions of a human. You're fucking with their genes, the natural genetics. And so, yes, you can bring up that ethical question. But when you overall look at it, it really seemed like a biased thing from the scientific community, in my opinion, because it was just something that they wanted to agree with it first for the Chinese to do it. Instead of, look, the Chinese didn't go above and beyond to do some seriously questionable ethical stuff. They did, when you read the article, see what they did, it was nothing super, super bad. The only thing is that they were messing with the genes.
But, I mean, the gene like the CCR5 research was actually started in UCLA when researchers blocked the gene in rats. And they tried to see what happened there, and it turned out that that the rats with the blocked CCR5 gene had greater results, right, in terms of like walking and learning how to walk, than the rats that still had the CCR5 gene with them, right? The CCR5 gene is, in some people, it's shut off, but not because, you know, we as humans did it ourselves, but
it was natural.
It was just a natural mutation that happened, right? So there are people in this world that are naturally resistant to HIV because that gene is shut off. And so when they saw that in certain people, they thought, why don't we try to do it ourselves? Why don't we try to actually take and cut that gene and shut it off and see what happens. So I don't know. I just think that it's really interesting because they were also talking about potentially using it for stroke rehabilitation, because what happens during a stroke is that basically like a person loses a lot of his like moving skills and all that, right?
His ability to move,
yeah. And basically, they were thinking, and I'm going to try to say, so this connection led those researchers to think that CCR5 could be a good drug target for helping stroke victims recover. Relearning how to move, walk, and talk is a key kind of value to stroke rehabilitation, right? So, but see, my thing with these kind of extreme breakthroughs, right, is that just because we don't see that there is a negative side to it now, it doesn't mean that there is not one in general, you know, because usually when we try to interfere with DNA, usually there's some sort of negative side to it that we don't know, and then only after some time we figure it out and we're like, oh, you know.
Not even just human DNA. I mean, definitely medically, we think one thing is okay, and then we find out it could be 100 years, it could be 10 years later. Oh, no, that was terrible. And that's the whole thing about science, is that's why it's okay for them to be doing these experiments in certain limited, regulated ways, because, of course, these are still human trials, but it's okay to do them, because without them, you would have a lack of the entire information. So you come out of it knowing the good and the bad, and you can weigh the issue from there. But without doing the scientific research, I mean, where are you going to go? But one of the last things I want to at least say here is, I'll leave this article in the comment section below for everybody, but this is the whole thing about science. This is the future, but 10 years from now, this could look like basic reality. I am a serious science supporter, and just as much as you are saying how you're going to actually get your fucking degree in science. Anyways, I digress from that bitch-ass attitude. But the CCR5 gene editing is, when you read it, all the articles, this one was from Popular Sciences, whoever looks it up will see, it's just a step in a direction of something we can't fathom, but something that is the greatest achievement scientifically to humanity. We don't know as much on genes, on the neurology of the brain, etc., etc. There's so much medical stuff that is actually an abyss to us that we need to put all our effort in this scientific research. And that's just my last opinion on that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's true. There's definitely a lot of these questions of whether or not we should do certain things, but you know, this whole gene splicing and editing and all that, it's just starting to come out. Like, we're just starting to try and understand what it's all about, but kind
of like vaccines back in the days,
right? And like, you know, but in order to progress in science and everything, that we need to research it more.
Way
but
more.
Then it just comes to that point of how much are we willing to sacrifice?
Oh yeah.
How much are we willing to really, I guess, put in to this whole process of learning new things, right? Because obviously there's going to be a lot of people that are totally against it, that we should just leave genes the way that they are, we should just leave humans the way that they are and all that. But
which, I mean, I can understand. I don't agree, but I can understand.
But let us know what you guys think of it, whether or not you guys think, is there any negative side to this CCR5
tweet us,
deletion, or just let us know what you guys think of it.
All right, last thing, you guys, this is not about the episode. If you do like Major Talk, or if you want to at least know more about us, definitely follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/Major Talk 4U, the number 4 and then the letter U, and subscribe and follow us here on YouTube. You'll see all of our content for free, and if you like the show enough, if you think that we're worthy later on down the road or now, we're just asking, hey, check us out on patreon.com/Major Talk 4U, letter U and number 4, and we're only asking for like a cup of coffee. $2 a month could make us do a lot. We'll be able to afford a camera, and you'll be able to see our bright, ugly faces. All right.